Okay, peace. Let's go. Here we go. I'm up here again in this episode of the Wizetics way. Wise, I'm breaking down why purpose must become your internal GPS. Because when you don't stand on principles, pressure will push you into positions that don't serve your destiny. So I'm going to show you how to learn how to build emotional endurance, stay aligned with your mission, and turn adversity into alignment. So we're going to cover why pressure reveals your purpose, the cost of compromising your values, how to anchor your mindset when emotions run high, the discipline it takes to lead with purpose, not popularity. This is mental wealth in motion, mindset mapping for money, mission, and mastery. That's what it is. That's what it is. So, how does pressure reveal your purpose? Pressure is the test that exposes truth. It doesn't create who you are, it reveals who you've been becoming in silence. Pressure exposes your priorities. When life gets tight, distractions fall off. You start to see what truly matters, your values, what you stand for, your why. The unnecessary noise fades, and what's left is purpose. Think about it. Diamonds and leaders, they formed the same way. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. I'm gonna let you think about that for a moment. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. So I have a camera here, I have a camera there. So I can step back over here. So let's see what we got. So like this. So camera follow me like this, right? So diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. Let me do mic check right quick. I'm gonna switch this off. I gotta hook something else up right quick as we go into this. Gotta hook my mic up. Gotta hook this mic up right quick. Hook this mic up. Okay, there we go. So I had to hook this other mic up right quick. So diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. Let me see what it's sounding like right quick. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. What is that same way that diamonds are formed and leaders are formed? Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. Under pressure, it forces growth, maturity, and alignment. Every challenge is a character check that shows you what part of yourself still needs discipline. Pressure forces clarity. In comfort, you can hide confusion. But under stress, we lost the connection for a second. Okay, look like we back. And what was I talking about? I was saying diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. Wow. Okay. Yeah, my connection was lost. I'm having some connection issues right here. Let me go check me out, see what I'm looking like on Facebook right quick. Let's see right here.
Nah, that's not it. Okay, we back, we back. Let's get to it. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. That's what I'm saying. Diamonds and leaders are formed the same way. So I'm looking right here. I'm doing a check as I go along with this. Make sure I'm lined up. Okay, we good. We good. So I got to get back to it. I got to take it back to the top. Let's take it back to the top. Let's take it back to the top. We're going back to the top. In this episode of Wizetics Way, the Wizetics Way, Wise is breaking down what I'm breaking down. Why purpose must become your internal GPS. Because when you don't stand on principles, pressure will push you into positions that don't deserve your destiny. So you got to learn how to build emotional endurance, stay aligned with your mission, and turn adversity into alignment. The topics covered today: why pressure reveals your purpose, the cost of compromising your values, how to anchor your mindset when emotions run high, the discipline it takes to lead with purpose, not popularity. This is mental wealth in motion, mindset mapping for money, mission, and mastery. That's what we're talking about. So let's go into this part right here: how pressure reveals your purpose. Pressure is the test that exposes truth. It doesn't create who you are, it reveals who you've been becoming in silence. Pressure exposes your priorities. When life gets tight, distractions fall off. You start to see what truly matters, your values, what you stand for, your why. The unnecessary noise fades, and what's left is purpose. And this is what I was saying before we had the technical difficulties earlier, right? Diamonds and leaders form the same way. Let's say it again. Diamonds and leaders form the same way under pressure. It forces growth, maturity, and alignment. Every challenge is a character check that shows you what part of yourself still needs discipline. Hold on for a sec. I got to take it. Okay, so I'm back. I had to take take care of something right quick. So we multitask, constantly multitasking, because I be live over here. And so, with me being live, anything take place a lot of times when you're going live. So we were talking about pressure, how pressure, how I said diamonds and leaders are formed the same way under pressure. Pressure doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to develop the discipline required to hold what you've been pushing for. That's basically all that it is. That's all that it is when we start talking about pressure. Yeah, yeah. So pressure, diamonds and leaders made the same way under pressure. So you got to stand on purpose, or you're gonna fall to the pressure. So what is it when you're standing on purpose? I got to do another check again to see what it's like, how everything is taking place as I'm on this live. So we're showing the live right here. Okay, good. What we got? What we got? So, I'm constantly over here adding on things to provide more value for those who is watching. Yeah, so you got to stand for something. So this is what prompted me to come back on here, right? So I was just strolling through and I was on TikTok and something popped up and I seen them talking about like foundational Black Americans and Jamaicans and all of this topic. And it was like, how the algorithm work. If you watch something for a certain amount of time, it start they start pushing it to you. And so as I'm watching this stuff, I'm seeing this stuff and I'm like, come on. Like this is what and they had the author, I think it was Nasheed to Tariq Nasheed, what his name is. Let me see if I can go back and find it right quick. It might don't come up. Go back, go back, go back. Let me see. Okay. I strolled past it a long way. Oh, okay. What's his name? Tariq Nasheed. And they talking about, in this specific uh, you know, post or whatever, he's talking about how Jamaicans they were colonized and stuff like that, and their mentality and how they address white people that's tourists as opposed to black people that's going over there. And he was speaking about that. So what and I started strolling through and it started feeding me, the algorithm started feeding me stuff on that same type of topic. And I'm like, yo, come on. Marcus Garvey was from Jamaica. Now I'm not saying all Jamaicans, you know, got a colonized mentality. I'm not saying all of them are like Marcus Garvey, but I will say Marcus Garvey is from Jamaica and he came to the United States and he set in motion, he set the tone for what became later with Noble Jew Ali, Master Farah Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, all the way up to Allah the Father. So that's one thing. And I know the Mental Wealth Podcast Live is not specifically geared towards that type of subject matter per se, because we here dealing with life and business, and we're talking about from structure over struggle, from underserved to unstoppable. And I don't want to get caught up in the fluff. I call it the fluff. I don't want to get caught up in a lot of things that it becomes distractions, because the main thing that we need to focus on is life and business. Life and business. Life is business and business is war. Life is business and business is war. This is what we gotta focus on. So when I'm dealing with my partners and we going through what we going through, this is what I'm keeping them focused on. You gotta focus on this. This is why my ticket is the way it is. It's called a high ticket. This is why this ticket is high the way it is, because what it takes in regards to focusing on life and business from the right perspective. What I'm saying, I'm talking about, like, yo, you gotta stand on purpose or you're gonna fall to pressure. What is that pressure? I think I gotta correct something over here. What is that pressure? That pressure is life. That pressure is life. Challenges, the demands of living your life. That's what pressure. That's what the pressure is. The pressure of challenges, overcoming problems, financial problems, relationship problems, all from all areas of relationship, parenting problems, partner problems, spouse or intimate relationship problems, business problems, bills, um, the demands of living life. This is what you gotta focus on. The demands of living life. And then some people will say, well, all this other stuff is the problem, government oppression, oppression, racism, white supremacy, um, crime, uh, you know, all of those things. They are challenges, they are problems. But it's one thing that it all root from: the lack of true knowledge of self. The more you have the knowledge of yourself, the more knowledge you have of yourself and apply that knowledge to yourself, the more easier it is to deal with these other challenges, which are really side effects. They are side effects because pressure just expose certain things about yourself that you need to work on. The level of the pressure that you receive, how you receive the pressure, is exposing something you need to work on. So you got to stand on purpose. What is your purpose? That's what you have to figure out. What is your purpose so you can stand on it? So, use myself for example. I've been through certain things that the average person might not be able to stand mentally. Like, after going through some of the trials and tribulations that I have experienced, the average person, if they would have went through that, they probably wouldn't have came out with sanity. I've seen certain people who went through the same things I went through, and then they like lose their sanity, um, start to experience awesome mental illnesses, awesome, mental, uh, just pressure, to the point where some individuals, took their life. Certain individuals, they succumb to the pressure a certain way where they committed suicide. I'm just being real about it. And, this is not, it's a touchy subject. It's a delicate subject. And it's not, to call anybody name out, you know, to cause any type of emotional turmoil about that. But it's just a reality. And when you know this is a reality, I mean, we know it's a reality because it's taking place. Yet, how do you deal with this? How do you prevent it? Because the servant that knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself get beat with many stripes. So how do you prepare? How do you prepare? But what do you do if you're already in it? Like you didn't prepare for it, but you in it. Whatever you should have prepared for, you didn't prepare for it, and now you're in the mix of it, the chaos. How do you navigate through the chaos? Got to take a step back. And sometimes you can't just take a physical step back. You got to step back in your mind. This is where having a coach comes in. This is where having a mentor comes in. So sometimes people can't financially afford certain things, such as a life business coach, a consultant, or get therapy, treatment. Sometimes people can't afford that. They don't. They can't financially afford it. This is why I do what I do, where I mentor certain individuals, where their lifestyle becomes the guidance. I teach young brothers knowledge of self. I mentor them in knowledge of self. So they go out into the world, they interact amongst their peers, they have relationships with different people in different places and encounter different things along the way. And their life itself becomes a beacon of light for some other people that's around them. They might not be directly, dealing with me. They might not be directly dealing with wise, but they dealing with a piece of, you know, my thought process in what I call life biz infrastructure. When I give certain things to my mentees and then they go out and interact with people, that portion of knowledge that they have, they're able to give it to some other people. They might not be given the full scope of it the way I have it, yet they can grow into that themselves to be on that level with it. So we are able to still cover the ground, the whole 196,940,000 square mileage of the planet, and within the jurisdiction of where we move in that in your local state or national level or whatever, you know, these individuals go out and do what they do. And so then I have other individuals that's in partnerships, other mentees that on a high ticket level, because on a knowledge of self level, on the base level from my culture, I do this for free. I teach for free. But then on a business level, when we start talking about you want to get your company structured a certain way, you want to position yourself to qualify for business funding, you want to scale your business to a money making machine. You want to be able to connect with different relationships, politicians, bankers, accountants, lawyers. These are what you need when you are in the battle of business, the war of business. So let me hip you to something, right? I'm gonna speak about Islam for a second. They say it's 5 pillars of Islam. It is. It's 5 pillars of Islam. One of the pillars is jihad, struggle. So that is letting you know that the fundamental part of life involves struggle. And because that is a natural order of life, struggle, you're going to need to know, how do I engage in struggle successfully? How do I manage struggle? How do I master struggle? Because struggle is ordained. So now the knowledge that is available is what you got to get so you can master struggle, because the struggle is a part of life. It's there. It's going to exist. Whether you like it or not, struggle is there. So it's about, how do you manage it, master it? Because if you don't stand on purpose, you're going to fall to the pressure. If you don't stand on purpose, you're going to fall to the pressure. And you have a lot of people, right? They want to participate in the fight for freedom on whatever level. But then we talk about intellectual warriors. You got some people, I call them sophisticated. I'm not even going to go into that one right there, right? So if you think about this, right, who, well, not just who, what's your foundation? So if a person says like, okay, if I'm a barber, right? If I'm saying I'm a barber, professional barber, because I can learn how to cut hair just by experimenting on people, on myself, and I can perfect it to a way. It's like, okay, I know what you got to do to cut hair. But are you certified? Are you a certified barber? You don't necessarily have to be a certified barber to be a barber. Yet to be in the business where you structure yourself as what you may call a legitimate business as a barber, because you can still be cutting hair and charging your friends and people, without having a license to be a barber. You still can do that. That happens all the time. Yet, um, still you had to have the experience in that. My point is, who gonna let you cut their hair? Some people, man, let you experiment on them. It's your man, it's your homeboy or whatever. Like, yo, go ahead, I can let you try. You can, practice on me. That's far in between. You had to develop your skills. You had to, get to where you can be proficient at it. Like, I'm good at cutting hair. Then I'm a master at cutting hair. You know, and so some people go to school, barber school, and they learn. And going to barber school, they get certified, they get their license, take the test, whatever. They a licensed barber. But again, you can be a barber. You can know how to cut hair and be really good at it, just as good as someone who didn't go to barber school. That works. And my point is this: when it comes to thought leadership on the Black experience of struggle, the Black experience of going through trials and tribulations inside of a system where we started out in this system as slaves. Can't deny that part. Slave system, oppressive system, Jim Crow. Laws written in on the books that you can't do this if you're Black, type of stuff, right? This water fountain for this person, this water fountain for that person, colored, white, all that stuff. These were laws. We understand that. I mean, for anybody who can just look back in history, some people still alive that lived through that. Like my dad, 80 some years old, he was in that era. So now check it out though. You have people who went through those eras as thought leaders for Black freedom, justice, and equality. They were, fighting for the liberation of us from up under those conditions. Some of them came from the base of just being Christian because that's what they were given from, their parents, just from being over here enslaved up under the system. They were Christianized and stuff like that. Yet they still had a little way of understanding how to make that base that they took on as a spiritual base or a knowledge base that they this was what they stood on to give them motivation, a sense of direction. They used the scripture, studied it. When they learned how to read English, they looked at it and did what they did with it. Okay, then they were able to motivate against certain circumstances of systemic oppression that was coming from the government, right? Okay, that's what they used. And then you had those who got introduced to Islam, not from the Orthodox Islam, from those that's in the East, because some of them were already over here doing business. I'm talking about individual like Noble Drew Ali, who introduced Islam as a science, not the religion, but the science of it. And he was advocating nationality. And then you have Master Farad Muhammad, who is the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And now we giving another layer of science, which now we're talking about. You had the nationalism from, I left someone out, Marcus Garvey. He was advocating black nationalism, no religion involved in what he was talking about. But if and then when he did speak about it, he said, "Black God for the black man," African for the African type of stuff. He was, on that type of time, black nationalism. So he did what he did to usher in certain aspects of freedom, consciousness, of liberating you from a thinking process that had you thinking from an inferior position, you know, slave mentality or whatever. And so then they evolved on to Noble Ali, and then evolved on to Master Farah Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad. And then it kept going all the way into the 60s, where we have Allah the Father with the 5% Nation. So these are lines of schools of thought or cultural foundations that were directly opposed to the systemic oppression of black people here in America. Okay. If you are not coming from one of those lines of cultural knowledge base, that's where I'm gonna put it. Where you coming from? What's giving you thought leadership? Now, we also had those like Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, who they came with what they came with. All right, okay. Martin Luther King, he came with what he came with. Mega Evans, and then you even had Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, Black Panthers, um, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame, changed his name to Kwame. Yeah, we had that. We had those individuals. So that's what I'm talking about. These people were impactful in certain ways with pushing the narrative for black freedom, justice, and equality in some shape or form. They stood on whatever they stood on from however they stood. But when I'm talking about people who actually had longevity, is you know not even to talk about longevity, but just having a system with it, like a school of thought that they stood on, and it was repeatable. Meaning you could teach this school of thought, you could mentor people into this school of thought, and they could take on the principles of this school of thought and apply them to their life, and apply them directly towards the problems that they had, that we were having, living here in America, black in America, up under the oppressive regime, and going through what we went through and still going through. So this is what I'm saying. What gives a person nowadays to be a thought leader on this specific subject matter? What gives you the ability to be a subject matter expert? What's your foundation? What do you stand on as your purpose? Because if you don't really have a strong position of a foundation, then you're going to fall to the pressure. And you will fall to the pressure in a way where you thinking that you still giving relevant guidance, but you might not be. So you might say, well, what's your foundation? My foundation is the 5% Nation. That's my foundation. I stand on that. So my decisions are based off that. And that gives me a universal outlook on things. I have to take a stop for a second. So I'm back, and we going in from stand on purpose or fall to the pressure. Stand on purpose or fall to pressure. And this is like a touchy subject. Like I said, it was prompted by some stuff that I seen on social media. His name Tariq Nasheed. He was speaking about foundational Black Americans. So, I was using the analogy that you can become a barber just by the experience of cutting on people's hair, experimenting, and then you can kind of perfect your craft as you go along, or you can go to barber school and learn it from being mentored, um, someone giving you the guidance on the skill set, the craft, history passed down on what it is and what you need to look out for, et cetera, et cetera. It's two different ways that you can become a barber, just through trial and error experience. That don't necessarily mean that you're going to perfect it through trial and error experience. And just because you go to school and learn don't necessarily mean you're going to get it either. But one thing about that, you got to take a test to get your certification and your license. You got to meet certain standards. I'm using that analogy for when it comes to thought leadership, subject matter expertise, and guidance on the subject matter of life and business. That's what I'm talking about, life and business. See, some people can go and learn how to become good salesmen. You can perfect the skills of getting someone to buy something from you, right? You're getting someone to buy something from you, but that don't mean the quality or the benefit of what they just purchased really adds up to be really what they was purchasing it for. Then you can have some people, they might not be good salesmen or saleswomen, yet they have something that's beneficial, that's needed. They just don't know how to communicate it. They might not have the avenue, the medium to get it to be seen and heard by enough people where they can make profit from it. And because they may not realize their purpose, they fall to the pressure. See, you can be good at something because you just became good at it, but you might not know how to benefit from it in a business way, in a business way, right? So when the pressure hit, you know, you fall to that pressure. And what I mean by that, you might try to turn it into a business. You might try to make some money off of what you know how to do, which is, you might you might know how to work on cars. You might be a auto mechanic. You might be a barber, a certified barber. You got a license. But do you know how to, you know, make a profit off of your skill set that you have? Because now it goes into knowing how to structure things from a business perspective, and which involves a lot of things. Starting a business involves a lot of things. Running a business involves a lot of things that you might not see on a surface level. You might learn the basics. You might pay LegalZoom to start your business. Get your LLC, articles of organization, your EIN number, using them as a register. You find the people to use as a registered agent. You might have did all of that. Showed your friends, your family, friends, and associates. I got my business. I got my LLC. Look what I got. Got a website developed. But now it's getting sales. Now it's getting clients. It's getting customers. Gaining loyalty, customer loyalty. Getting leads, turning sales conversion, getting your leads into the funnel and then converting them over to customers and repeating customers. All of that is a strategy. All of that takes certain knowledge, certain information that you gotta know, and then be able to repeat it and systemize it. But what does that got to do with what I was talking about just a few minutes ago about, you know, black leadership, um, thought leaders, subject matter experts, and all the things that took place that led us to where we are today? This is how it fits, right? Because you have certain people that's in the forefront. They might have a megaphone and be representing in a way that's not useful for real for the cause at hand. It might not. So these things always took place. You always had these people throughout the history of our fight for freedom, justice, and equality in America, in the United States. You always had certain people that was like standing in as leaders and providing information and like, oh, this is what we need to do. So it's like, yo, what's your foundation though? Like, what do you stand on? And because most of us come from a Christian base uh orientation into this country, it's like, oh, I'm basing my principles off the Bible. And inside the Bible there are some great principles, but it's a little bit deeper because now we got to talk about, how do you identify yourself? Are you identifying yourself in a way where it takes away from your power to meet the demands of the reality of living within this country? And so I'm tying this all together. So I'm saying life and business. So I'm coming from a cultural perspective, a spiritual perspective, and a monetary perspective. It's like all connected, holistically connected. This is what I'm coming with. And again, if you want to get more of this, you can get the book Wizetics. You can go on my website, wisenetworks.biz, book a call. You can schedule a call with me. We can get on a call, go through a diagnostic, see what's going on, see where you at, see where you're striving to go, and see if it's a fit of an alignment that I could get you to that point of where you're striving to get to. Um, that's what it's about right there. I'm just, like I said, I'm just bringing my part to the equation of our fight for freedom, justice, and equality. So in this part, financial freedom is a major part. Financial freedom, and certain people doing their job with providing avenues for us to obtain financial freedom. I bring these people up all the time: John Bryant, your leisure, Wall Street Trapper, Myron Goldman. These individuals doing, and it's some females too. I've seen some females out there. They got what they got going on. Pushing the narrative for establishing Black generational wealth, and everybody got their role that they got. Some chose the role for themselves, and some got appointed in those roles. Still, they chose it for themselves based off how they lived their life. They attracted that to them. They met certain, their life, the way they lived, it showed certain things, so certain people can appoint them. Like, look, we need you to take this position. But the competition amongst us keeps us stuck. That competition keeps us stuck. And I'm not going to be here that much longer on this. Is it 12 right now? Okay. I'm going to end on this note. You see me in the raw form kicking this. And there's a reason why. It's to meet you where you at. So you might see me in another form on a different level. But I'm coming in this form so I can meet you where you at. so you can evolve to another level. For those who are already on a higher level, it's being able to maintain that level and grow higher to another level. Because you got some people that's already high ticket. You got some people that own banks. You got some people that, and it's just not for black people. What I do is just not for black people. It's particularly for us. But in order for us to get to where we really need to go, you got to know how to coexist in a way that makes sense, and you don't compromise the integrity of your position. So it's certain people that's rich and wealthy that I work with. Then there's some people that's in the underserved community that I work with. And then I bridge the gap as someone who communicates the message, who speak the language to bring about understood understanding. That's what Wise Network Consultancy is about, bridging the gap between high net worth and underserved community. Bridge that gap. And the gap is bridged through communication, proper communication. And it starts inside the mind with understanding what your purpose is, because you begin to see that all of us have a different interrelationship because we all live on the planet Earth. That's just how simplified it gets. The planet Earth belongs to God. Every square inch he chose for himself, the best part. And how do we take the best part of each other and build off that and let the other parts, where can we agree? Let's build on our mutual common ground and still learn how to coexist in areas where we don't mutually agree. But how can we still recognize the boundaries and respect the boundaries? Because I'm coming through. See, a lot of you have never heard of me, but I'm coming through. A lot of you, this is your first time. Oh, who are you? But I'm backed by something. I'm backed by something. I stand on something. And that's my principles of the knowledge of self. Peace. Life is business. Business is war. We're going from underserved to unstoppable. Structure over struggle. Peace.